It's time for another edition of Big League Dreaming, the podcast. On today's show, Zach, we have a great guest.
Yes, I'm excited to talk more Notre Dame baseball. This team is very hot, so good things are happening.
Good things are happening. The team is hot. Keep it here on Big League Dreaming, the podcast.
Since I was a kid,
oh yeah,
I was big league dreaming.
I was big league dreaming.
For as long as I live,
Always,
I'm big league dreaming.
I never got to bat in the major leagues. I'd have liked to have that chance, just once. To stare down a big league pitcher. Make him think you know something he doesn't. Chance to squint at a sky so blue that it hurts your eyes just to look at. To feel the tingle in your arm as you connect with the ball. To run the bases, stretch a double into a triple, and flop face first. Wrap your arms around the bag. That's my wish for Gonzalez.
Welcome to another episode of Big League Dreaming, the podcast, a show about fulfilling your dreams and taking it to the next level. And folks, we have a great show. I hope it's a great show. You know what? It will be a great show because we're talking about Notre Dame baseball and this, I don't want to say improbable run anymore because after last night's big win, I think that script is just out the window, right? And we're going to talk about this team's real chances of winning the College World Series. We'll get to our guest in a moment. Right now, I need to introduce part of the trio. I don't know. We're a quartet, the Gonzalez quartet. Let's say that. Joining me on today's podcast is son number one. He's the Mariners fan. He's based in Charlotte, North Carolina, and working a little bit for the Charlotte Knights as well. So, hey, Zach, how you doing?
Doing great. Excited that the College World Series is here. One of the best times of the year, seeing those kids get after it. So great time to talk baseball right now.
Great time to talk baseball indeed. You know, and we're missing from today's show, son number two, that is Ty Gonzalez. He is, I should say, Zach's the Mariners fan. I'm the Tigers fan. Zach's the Mariners fan. Ty is the Mets fan. He's based here in Grand Rapids, not too far from me, and I get to see him every once in a while. We get to go to Whitecaps games together. He's a little busy with family time right now, so we'll let him enjoy this Father's Day weekend. And then son number three is based in South Bend, Indiana. He is the pitching coach and the recruiting coordinator at Indiana University at South Bend, and he is the Red Sox fan. So we've got your Major League Baseball teams covered, right, Zach? I mean, you guys are crazy. They just spread all over the place.
Yeah, we get to see different perspectives from all over different divisions and things like that. So it's fun to have those conversations.
Here on Big League Dreaming, we talk about all levels of baseball, whether it's the professional level, even the minor leagues here, because I'm based in Comstock Park, which is the high A affiliate for the Detroit Tigers. West Michigan Whitecaps are right here in my neighborhood, right? And the boys all grew up going to Whitecaps games. In fact, we had a fun time there last weekend going to a game last Sunday. Oh my gosh, it was so much fun to be at a Whitecaps game. But we've seen so many players over the years, Zach, come up the system, including Spencer Torkelson, who has been kind of a bust this year. We'll save that for another show. But Riley Green makes his Major League debut today, Saturday, June 18th. And that'll be all the talk later on today about how he does in his debut. We'll save that for another day as well. We need to talk Notre Dame baseball, and joining us on the line from Omaha, Nebraska, is beat writer John Brice for Irish Sports Daily. How you doing, John?
I'm well, gentlemen. How are you today?
Oh my gosh, probably not as well as you.
Yeah, this is my first time to cover the College World Series. I've been in sports journalism for a little over 20 years. It's always been an event that I had hoped to cover, and certainly it's meeting expectations and really just a fabulous performance Friday night by Notre Dame. Should not be a surprise anymore, but I think a few people continue to be surprised by this Notre Dame run, but just a really convincing win against a Texas team that spent a lot of the season number one and had some dominant moments.
Yeah, I love your story posted today on Irish Sports Daily. I love your lead, trash the lucky label, junk the underdog story. This Notre Dame team, it's good, damn good. And it showed as much Friday night at its first College World Series appearance in 2 decades. I mean, that's a great lead. I love that. It's kind of sets the tone for everything. But last night's win was impressive on a variety of levels. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, it really was. Once again, we saw Notre Dame set an early tone. Jared Miller, a guy who was injured, I think, May 14th and did not play again until last Friday at Tennessee. And by the way, he homered in his first at bat in 27 days when he stepped to the plate last Friday at Tennessee. Opened up the scoring again last night with an opposite field blast just over the right field wall on top of the dugout roof for the Notre Dame bullpen. And so just a really remarkable tone setting moment for Notre Dame at the plate. John Michael Bertrand, who we've seen it all year long, navigated some early trouble. But honestly, I think he does a lot of his best pitching because of his mental strength when there's traffic on the bases. And he got out of some key traffic moments early, let the offense build that lead. And then I think just as we saw with Tennessee, I think the pressure got to Texas last night, and pressure is something to which Notre Dame is completely impervious right now, in my opinion.
Oh my gosh, watching the team having so much fun in the dugout. You know, they have an incredible leader in Link Jarrett. Just to watch the vibe of the team, you know, we were watching it on television. You were there live in person, but just watching it from the television perspective, you could just tell as soon as Miller hit that home run, I said to myself, this game is over.
That's when Miller hit it, it was certainly a really striking moment. I still wanted to see how Bertrand navigated Texas's lineup early, especially because it was such a right-handed heavy Texas lineup. And that's what Tennessee obviously had a week ago, a much smaller ballpark, and the ball was really jumping on Rocky Top last weekend. But I thought it once again stamped Notre Dame's arrival as, hey, we're not going anywhere. But I still wanted to see Bertrand navigate the lineup and frankly, flip the order over and see how he started to handle things a second time through the order. And again, really stingy with the hits. His control was great. And once again, he got masterful defense behind him. And the guy just pitches really, really well when he has to buckle down and make big time plays. And he made a Gold Glove quality play at the pitcher's mound when he fielded that bunt and got the lead runner at second, which did ultimately save a run in the game.
It did, and also credit the bullpen too. And we'll talk about the bullpen in a second. But Zach, your initial thoughts of the game yesterday?
Yeah, I mean, it's a statement for sure, right? To come out and take down Texas game one. I mean, I don't know what the numbers are, but I'm sure a team in Omaha that wins the first game, they probably have a lot better odds to win the whole thing. You get that momentum, you have better chances to go deep in this thing. So for them to take down Texas game one, like a lot of people are thinking they're this Cinderella team to show like, no, we're here to play. It's a statement for sure.
Yeah, I completely agree. And again, the statements made within the game, first time all season long that Texas had been held without an extra base hit in any game. I think now Notre Dame is the first team this season in college baseball to notch wins against both Tennessee and Texas, two teams that's been a great part of the season, ranked number one, and two teams that were prohibitive favorites to not only be here in Omaha, but to advance in Omaha. Tennessee obviously didn't make it. Now Texas season is on the ropes tomorrow against Texas A&M in a big rivalry elimination game. So yeah, I just think that Notre Dame has sent a bunch of statements from opening up tournament play in Statesboro with a 3-0 run, beating a Texas Tech team twice that I thought had a case to be a top 16 team and certainly had a case to be a top 2 seed, but was the number 3 seed in that Statesboro regional. So I just think that Notre Dame continues to send really loud, emphatic messages. They're an old team. They're a veteran team. They're not fazed by anything. And frankly, they're just playing so incredibly well in all 3 facets. You're not looking at this and saying, well, Notre Dame can only win if they score 8 or 9 runs. No, they've won some games where the offense has really been tamped down, and then they've had a couple of games where the offense has exploded and set the tone. But it's a team clicking on all cylinders.
John, you said they're an old team. I think that's because they have all those mustaches, right?
Yeah, the mustaches are fun. Link Jarrett is a brilliant coach, in my opinion. I've said all season long, and really going back to last year, I think he's one of the top 5 coaches in college baseball anywhere. And he has some of kind of those old New York Yankee style rules about facial hair and things of that nature. But he was wise enough, he said, to have a feel for his team and realized that he needed to relax those when the guys showed up for practice that Thursday before the tournament began down in Statesboro a couple of weeks ago, and all the guys started trickling out of the dugout with those playoff mustaches as a form of solidarity. So I jokingly asked Link about that this week at a press conference, and he laughed and shook his head and said, I just didn't grow one, but I'm not messing with it now. They can keep them. So.
Well, I think the statements started, I mean, you've been following this team all year long, but so you probably even have it further back. But for me, as kind of like the fan that watches toward the end of the season, some of the conference tournaments or what, as we're getting ready for the College World Series, when Notre Dame got snubbed and was not able to host at home there. And I was there last year when you hosted, when Connecticut, Central Michigan, and Michigan were all there. That seemed to almost like light another fire under them, right?
Oh, it absolutely did. And I think it was a deserved fire under them, because I felt unequivocally they should have been a host team. They had, I think by that point in time, 18 wins against ACC competition and had gone on 6-1 against the Big Ten this season in non-conference play. So just 24 super high quality wins. They're a team that faces an adversity that very few other Power 5 programs do, and that is having to open so much of its season on the road. This year was 5 consecutive weekends on the road before finally in the 6th weekend they got a home series. And so, yeah, I thought that every intangible and every tangible metric pointed to Notre Dame being worthy of a host team at minimum in the regional round. And I thought after they ran to the semifinals of the ACC tournament, they had a solid case to be a national seed and potentially hosting in the super regional round.
Yeah, it's just incredible. But, it's like, it's fun. I can't wait for Sunday night's game. I believe it's at 7 p.m. on ESPN2, 7 p.m. Eastern time. You have to deal with that time zone stuff over there in Omaha, right?
Yeah, we do. It is 7 Eastern, 6 Central, and my brother-in-law, who's a huge Notre Dame fan, lives in Salt Lake City, and he's 5 Mountain Time. So we had a family group text that was rather confusing yesterday about what time first pitch was.
And if we have time, I wanted to share your story about just driving out to Omaha, because we had a fun conversation yesterday morning about that. But right now, Zach has some questions. Like I said, the other 2 members of Big League Dreaming, the podcast, weren't able to be here today, Ty and Zane. Ty played 2 years of college baseball. Zane and Zach both played 4 years of college baseball. So baseball is in the blood, hence why we do this podcast. We're always dreaming of making it to the next level. Zach, I know that you had some questions there from the guys. I guess lead off with whatever one you want to lead off with.
Yeah, so Ty had a couple questions. One of them was just about like the atmosphere there in Omaha as far as Notre Dame fans go. And I was looking at the 8 teams that are there. I believe that Notre Dame's the closest school to Omaha itself. What's the fan atmosphere? How well did Notre Dame fans travel to Omaha this year?
I was impressed last night, and obviously Notre Dame is one of the smaller schools of the 8 schools out here, just in terms of student enrollment, undergrad, things of that nature. But Notre Dame is obviously a global brand. It's very well represented out here. You could absolutely hear a lot of chants last night of "Let's Go Irish" and cheering on John Michael Bertrand at various moments, and just different elements throughout the crowd. So I think Notre Dame represented well. I think a lot of people expected it to be an overwhelmingly Texas crowd. The Longhorns program has been here 38 times, but again, it was not a just decidedly quote unquote home game for Texas, because they're so accustomed to being in Omaha. It was a very vocal, loud contingent of Notre Dame fans that made a solid showing. Now, the Arkansas fans might be the most numerous, and there were a ton of Texas A&M fans floating around for the earlier game Friday afternoon. I'm excited to kind of see things today at the stadium and not be working, quote unquote, on just kind of soaking in the atmosphere a little bit more between the 4 teams that are playing today. But from talking to people in the press box and around the venue, there's an incredibly large number Arkansas fans expected, and they've always sort of turned Omaha into the Omahogs the last few years that Arkansas has been out here. So a really, really strong showing for Notre Dame. They had an impressive showing last weekend down on Rocky Top, only about 300 or so fans, but they were vocal all weekend long. My wife works for the university. She was one of the ones who was able to make the trip down to Rocky Top last weekend, was there all 3 games in that heat, cheering on the Irish. So it was a neat environment last week. A lot more Notre Dame fans here this week. And you can see if Notre Dame gets another win tomorrow, I would expect even more Notre Dame fans to be here as things progress midweek.
I know Zane had a couple questions about the Oklahoma matchup specifically, but Ty also asked about potential Irish getting drafted this year. I know me and Dad love talking the draft. It'll be coming up next month. Do the Irish have any draft candidates on their team this year?
Yeah, they definitely do. You start with Jack Brannigan. He's draft eligible at third base. For a little while, I wondered if Brannigan might not be drafted as a relief pitcher, and I think some teams will still want to see him as a relief pitcher. He's a guy that can run it up there triple digits. He's hit 100, 101 on the gun, not necessarily with consistency, but he's done it with a little bit of regularity. Now, he tweaked his arm a little bit in the last regular season series at Miami. Thought he had blown out his elbow, and so he's been pretty tentative with the return. They've not used him in a pitching role since then. He's also, again, a plus defender at third base. He has really good power when he gets a hold of the ball. And by the way, he's the fastest player on the team. His dad, I believe, is a former track athlete at the University of Notre Dame. So he's got a lot of really good traits that scouts are going to be looking for. So he's a guy I would expect to be drafted. Liam Simon and Alex Rayo out of the bullpen are probably the 2 top draft candidates from the pitching rotation or from the pitching staff right now. Those guys can really run it up there, mid-90s, have some good movement on their fastballs. They can locate when they're on. They can get they're little higher volume strikeout pitchers that can do some really good things. I expect both of those guys to be drafted. John Michael Bertrand will be drafted. He's not a pure power pitcher. He told me a few weeks ago that he ran it up at a career best, like 94 mile per hours on his 4-seam fastball. A couple of times this year, he sit more around 91, 92. But again, he just pitches well, and he'll get a shot from some people. And then Ryan Cole, with what he's done the last 2 years, it's hard to think that somebody won't take a flyer on him. He's just a pure hitter. He plays a really clean outfield defense, and he's also got plus speed. So off the top of my head, those are some guys. Maybe a Carter Putz could look at it as well. Jared Miller as well. But those guys that I mentioned first are probably the top draft candidates for Notre Dame going into this summer.
So Zane was talking Oklahoma. Has Coach Jarrett announced the starting pitcher for tomorrow night's game yet?
He has not yet announced it. The indication was that it would once again be Austin Temple, and they will kind of stick with what they've been working. What has been working. Rayo only threw, I think, 22 pitches in Friday night's game. You get the off day today. That's the same scenario it was last weekend in Tennessee, except Rayo threw far more pitches on Friday night and still came back and helped them on Sunday. So I would think the Irish will open with Austin Temple, the big right-hander from Jacksonville, and then still have Liam Simon out of the pen. You've got Aiden Tyrell. If you think it favors him, he's a craftier lefty. Then you still got Alex Rayo. Obviously, Jack Finley has shown an ability to bounce back and work extended leverage situations for Notre Dame. So really the only person scratched from tomorrow in terms of availability for Notre Dame is John Michael Bertrand, and the rest of their bullpen is pretty flush.
Yeah, and he had one more question about Oklahoma. He said, they've been pegged as a young group this year, but they really showed yesterday they can really swing it and play more mature than people are giving them credit for. What are some points of emphasis that Notre Dame will need to have to come out on top against them tomorrow night?
Yeah, great question. I really like that question. And honestly, without sounding cliche, it's what Notre Dame's been doing. It's executing, it's playing great defense behind its pitching, and then it's being opportunistic with its offense. And Oklahoma certainly was impressive in its win yesterday against Texas A&M. I don't think we can ignore the really shoddy defense that Texas A&M played that led to, I believe, the 7-run inning that really put the game out of reach for Oklahoma very early on. And so I know Texas A&M had some terrible defense, and Oklahoma, to its credit, instantly capitalized on that terrible defense. But Notre Dame has not tended to give up those huge innings full of errors and mistakes like that the way that A&M did yesterday. And again, sometimes you have a team that's so young, it doesn't recognize the moment, just as you've got a Notre Dame team that's so veteran, it's not fazed by the moment. I think you'll see a clash of those two styles tomorrow. But Notre Dame has been through so much that, once again, I think if they can get an early lead, it's only natural for Oklahoma to potentially wonder, okay, are we going to be another victim to here we go again? Because as explosive as this Oklahoma team has proven that it can be, it's also had some ups and downs this season, a little bit more inconsistency at times than this Notre Dame team.
Yeah, I think it's where the maturity of the Notre Dame team will play to their advantage. John Brice, folks, we're talking to John Brice from Irish Sports Daily. Also, you can find him at footballscoop.com. A couple more things just to wrap things up, because we, again, want to respect your time. I know you've got maybe some press conferences to go to and other things to do today. John, where now I lost my train of thought after the reset. How about that?
It was probably the Rally Bananas that got you.
The Rally Bananas. We actually have a team in Grand Rapids called Cage 52 Bananas, and I was like, who would name their team Bananas? And then there they are, the Notre Dame team eating their bananas. When did that start?
I'm really not sure. I think it's been a postseason thing. It might have started during some of the rain delays down in Statesboro. That's not one that the origin is quite as clear as the postseason mustache phenomenon.
Well, I know one thing I was going to ask you, though, was about we've had on the last podcast, Tom Noy joined us from South Bend Tribune, and I know that you and he are friends. So I don't want to jinx things, but he said he was packed for 10 days. Where do I know that in sports we like to say, take each game day by one at a time or whatever the cliche is, but did you pack for 10 days too?
I packed for an extended stay. I did. Now Tom flew out here, and so he scheduled a long return flight home. I can't remember exactly where it is. I drove out just a little over 500 miles. It wasn't a bad drive for me, but that also afforded me the opportunity to overpack. And so I do believe I have plenty of clothing to sustain me for as long as Notre Dame continues on this torrid postseason run.
Torrid, good word to describe this, because I've never seen anything like this. This team is the hottest team in college baseball right now. They proved it again last night. You just have that. They have that sense like they're going to do it, right? I mean, we had the sense. So there's a certain teams that have a personality, and right away when you watch this team play, that they're confident but not cocky. Is that possible?
Yeah, absolutely, it's possible, and I think it's because they've been through so much. It's because of the belief they have in one another, and frankly, it's because they're so incredibly well prepared by Link Jarrett and his staff. The meticulous approach that this group has is like nothing I've seen in college baseball. And you've got some more talented teams, and certainly top to bottom, Tennessee was the more talented team last weekend. Notre Dame was the better prepared team. I had a former Vol player text me. Again, those are my roots. I grew up in East Tennessee. I had a former Vol baseball player text me last weekend and say, hey, credit to Notre Dame, Link Jarrett pants Tony Vitello this weekend. And I thought that was the case. I thought that the Notre Dame coaching staff, from its scouting reports going into the weekend to in-game decisions, absolutely used its coaching advantage as well as the calm and the resolve of its players to win that series. I think we continue to see that now. And I wrote about this Friday on Irish Sports Daily, put a lot of research into it. No team out here has played more games away from home than Notre Dame. No team out here has played fewer home games than Notre Dame. Those are all key elements, in my opinion, at this stage. And Notre Dame is supremely comfortable away from home. And I asked Link about that in the Thursday press conference out here in Omaha and said, Link, at this this point, do you almost feel like you have more routine on the road than you do at home? And he laughed even before I finished the question. He said, John, we better, as much as we've been on it and where we are now, we better have more routine. And then he gave a really thoughtful, eloquent answer like he always does. But and I wrote this last night. Last night was Link Jarrett's 116th game atop the Notre Dame program. 74 of those games have been away from home. 74 out of 116. The math is essentially if you had a 12-game college football season and played 7 to 8 road games every year.
That's crazy.
Gotta love playing in the Midwest.
Yeah, that's it builds character, right? That's what they tell me about the winners.
Yes. Well, John, we really appreciate you being on the podcast today. Of course, folks, if you want to find John, you can check him out at Irish Sports Daily and footballscoop.com. We're going to keep talking to you and Tom, if that's okay, throughout this run, because we've enjoyed having both of you on the show and great insight. If you're following Notre Dame baseball, I think you guys add perspective to it. So would you mind coming back again later in the week?
Yeah, I would love to come back again later in the week, and much respect for the pod. I think it's a great thing that you guys are able to do as a family. So kudos to you.
Well, thank you so much. All right, folks, that's about it for us. Zach, anything else you want to add?
Well, thank you for your time, John. You've been awesome.
All right. Thanks, Zach. Take care, man. Enjoy the day with your family. I got a couple of adorable daughters there.
Appreciate it.
All right, folks, that's it for Big League Dreaming, the podcast. Ty, where can we get more information if you want to follow the show?
Hey, it's Ty from Big League Dreaming Podcast. Be sure to give us a follow on Twitter at BLDpod. That is at BLDPOD. And we're also on TikTok now as well. So give us a follow at Big League Dreaming. We'd love to connect with you.